my multiple sclerosis diagnosis was the best thing that ever happened to my perspective, if not to say to me, because obviously I would prefer not to have been diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, but also it's genuinely changed my life in ways I don't think would have, unfortunately, if it hadn't happened. So to give you a little bit of additional context, I think by nature or by habit, let's say, I'm a very anxious person. I burnt out when I was 23 years old. I went through a depression. I went through another depression a couple of years after that one. I haven't gone through any other depression since then, so I am very thankful for that. But that has taken a lot of intentionality. And a few years back, I was actually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And when that happened, I had just gone through 6 very hard months at work. Work was everything to me, and not being recognized at work and even being belittled sometimes, or at least it felt like being belittled to me, really played on my mental health in a bad way. My anxiety was at an all-time high. And then I got multiple sclerosis. And I think this somehow cured my anxiety, if that's possible. Not that I'm never anxious anymore, but it has gone down so much more in the past few years. And the reason for that is that, to me, the worst thing that could ever happen happened. I mean, if you're familiar with multiple sclerosis, I feel very lucky to live in a day and age where your vision of multiple sclerosis might not be actually what my life looked like on a daily basis. So when you tell people, even when I had that diagnosis about multiple sclerosis, the first reaction is thinking of someone in a wheelchair and who will wither away. And that was my reaction. And one of my greatest fear is actually to wither away mentally and physically. And so that was hard. But so I had that diagnosis, and this is what came through my mind. Like, the worst thing that could happen has happened. Thankfully, I live in a day and age where now there are treatments, and actually 80% of the people that have multiple sclerosis look like me and live normally. Normally being a big word, because there can still be fatigue and invisible invisible handicaps. So just keep in mind that my experience is not everyone's experience, and I don't want to belittle everyone else's experience of MS, because as my neurologist has told me, there are as many multiple sclerosis diseases as there are people who are diagnosed, because it is so different from a person to another. But I still feel thankful that I live in a day and age where my chances of living well into a long age are much better than they were even 20 years ago for someone diagnosed 20, 30 years ago. So going back to that, it still felt like the worst thing that had ever happened to me. And after that happened, I was like, what's next? What's next when the worst thing you thought would happen happened? And I think that liberated me in a way, that freed me of all the fears I had of doing things that could lead to me being hurt or even maybe me dying. This is how anxiety works, right? You think of the worst case scenario. And it also liberated me of so much. I'm not saying I'm still human. I'm not saying I don't care about how others see me or whether they like me or not, whether they approve of what I do, especially my loved ones, whether I am loved by my loved ones. But I have become my priority. And what's the most important for me is that me, Lucille, is healthy, and that my health, mental and physical well-being are good, and that I actually go and live the best life I can live, the life that I dream of, and the life that I've dreamed of for years. And that is the priority for me, giving myself everything that I feel I deserve and I've always dreamt of. And so this has really helped. And I think that I want to share this gift with other people because I truly wish that I had changed and that I had realized all those things and I had realized how worthy I was of my life and how little it mattered actually what someone thought of me at work, even a manager. Like, honestly, if you're in a workplace where you feel it's not working for you, then it's not working for you, and that's okay. And I think so many of us, me included, for so many years, we want to prove them wrong. We want to prove we're capable of doing something. We want to prove we're different than what your manager or your colleagues might think. But to be honest, like, us as humans, we're not meant to fit everywhere. So if you don't fit somewhere, if you feel like you're being belittled, if you feel like you're not up to the standards or you're not working, you're not the kind of person, employee that your manager wants you to be, then maybe it's not about them being a certain way or you being a certain way, them being the problem or you being the problem, but more about you not being in the right place, in a place that actually works for you with your values, who your needs, who you are as a person, what you like to do. And I think that's never something I thought about before getting my multiple sclerosis diagnosis. I always thought if it didn't work in a company, I was the problem and I needed to prove them wrong and I needed to change my entire self to prove someone wrong, someone who didn't actually care about me changing or didn't want me to change or just, didn't think I was going to do a good job and didn't really care. Like, you see what I mean? We all have our lives, and even your managers, the people in front of you, they don't care that much. They care about you, but what I mean by that is, like, at the end of the day, they have their own life and they're gonna think more about themselves, their success, and how things work. Even your most caring manager, even if they're disappointed that you leave because they really enjoyed working with you and they loved having you working with them, at the end of the day, like, they're still gonna move on. It's okay. But I'm getting lost a bit. I think the heat wave is getting to me. But what I mean by that is, not as long as I'm healthy, as long as I have money, a roof to sleep under, as long as I have food on my table, everything else is okay, and everything else is gonna be okay. And I still get, when I'm in the day in between meetings, sometimes when I have a lot of client meetings, sometimes I get wrapped into it and I sense their sense of urgency and it completely, pulls me into it. But then I take a 5-minute break or I take a 10-minute break, I go outside or I look outside or I go and make myself a coffee. And then I'm reminded that it's not that big of a deal. No one is gonna die. I don't work for an emergency room. No one's gonna die if I don't do my job properly or if someone in front of me is not happy, or nothing is actually that urgent at work, unless you work in an emergency room, unless you work with patients who you're saving their lives. Nothing is that urgent and I don't want to stress myself about it. So I think this has really helped bring perspective. I think another place where it has brought perspective is that I realized that I put my worth into what other people thought about me, parents, loved ones, etc. And I realized that they have a vision of who I am that is different from who I am, and that's normal. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen this theory, but everyone sees you differently. They don't all exactly see you the same, depending on what they focus on, depending on the history they have with you, depending on what they've lived with you and what has stayed with them. I even have a different view of myself than everyone else. And when I realized that, I was like, yes, some people that I love still see part of me a lot differently than I see myself. And they might criticize me on some parts. And I'm like, that's not who I am. That's not how I see myself. Me, I'm the adult who wants to give the little child in me, the inner child, everything that they deserve. And that has really changed something in me where my worth doesn't come from the outside anymore, but really from the inside. And it's made things easier. And I think the third place I would say where my multiple sclerosis diagnosis has changed so much is regarding practicing acceptance. I think in English, my American friends were telling me it's more about surrendering. And I have become way better at surrendering when things happen. And surrendering doesn't mean giving up. I think to me, it just means accepting in the moment that a situation is a certain way and still believing truly, being certain, trusting that I am going to get out of that situation, that I am going to find a way out. But I think so many times when something so horrible happens or something that shakes us or just something that's hard, like it can be losing a job, it can be, getting a diagnosis. I think we tell ourselves, or it can be being tired from work, having even like small things like I wanted to sleep very well last night and I didn't because of the heat, and so I slept in until 10 a.m. and I don't like doing that. I like getting up early. But at the end of the day, that's just how things are, and we can fight them, or we can say, hey, this is how it is right now, and that's okay. And I'm accepting that this situation as it is in this moment is as is, but I'm gonna focus on what I'm grateful for, what is good. For instance, my example, I got a good night of sleep, and that is very important when it's very hot outside to let my body recharge and during the night. And I'm gonna say, okay, what do I do today to make things different? So here it's like 1919 or 7:19 p.m. for my American friends. And I am going to, after this filming this video, I am going to go get dinner, go out for a walk, as hopefully it will be a bit nicer in the evening, get a shower, and then go to bed early. And so that's the plan for the next day. Because I am alive, I get to try again every day because I am able, healthy. I get to have dreams. I get to know that I'm going to realize them, and I get to try again every day. I get to try again every hours. I get to try again every second. So acceptance, surrendering has been so helpful. And again, surrendering, accepting does not mean giving up. It just means really not making things harder on yourself by telling you it shouldn't have been this way, it should have been different. Why has this happened? Why? Given that, especially when you get a big diagnosis or something big happens, like that's part of the process, right? That's part of the process of grieving. It's not just for when you're grieving someone else, but it's also when you're actually grieving a situation, something that was. So it's also about accepting going through that process, but knowing that you'll get out on the other side. So really accepting makes things much easier rather than telling yourself it should have been different. No, maybe it should have, but it's not, because it's the present and you can't influence the past, but you can influence the future. So it can be different in the future. And focusing on this is how it is right now. That's okay. I'm going to get through this, whatever it is, and I'll make it different in the future. So this whole diagnosis has really brought me so much. It's brought me so much hardship and so many difficult things, but overall my life has been better for it because of what I made of it after. And I so wish I had all those big realizations before this diagnosis, but as a doctor told me, as humans we tend to realize things once we actually feel the pain of them. And I think that's also why there are so many personal development coaches who try to make you visualize and feel the pain so you don't actually have to live it. Like before, when I would go through this, I don't know if you've ever gone through, let's say, a Tony Robbins seminar, and he has this Dickinson, I think it's called, practice where you visualize very like how horribly your life could go if you don't change. And when I did it the first time, I was like, why would anyone put themselves through that much pain, like intentionally? Why? And after I got my diagnosis, I was like, yeah, because if you get yourself through that much pain, and if it gets you enough leverage to actually change, you don't have to actually go through the pain, through the diagnosis, through the loss to change. And this has been very big. So I just want to tell you, if this has resonated for you, and if you want to hear more about what I've learned after my diagnosis, because I've learned a lot, how I'm being productive and efficient while still making sure my health and energy comes first, and how I am living my best life every day and doing everything to achieve all of my dreams, then you're in the right place, and I'm so happy you're here. So subscribe, follow along, and hopefully this helps you as much as it's helped me. And yeah, I'm just happy you're here. Thank you.